Hey there, gang. We just returned from a most excellent journey where we spent some time with the Chicago Dental Society's midwinter meeting. And we thought now would be a good time to talk about braces.
Tim, we talking about brackets.
Right. Brackets. This is a podcast about the new Commander brackets because we're a Commander show. That makes more sense. Welcome to Head Games.
Greetings and salutations, everybody. My name is a Zombie Apocalypse, and at the dentist conference, they called me Klepto. I mean, they just called me Steve.
Yeah, don't be surprised if you find a giant tooth in his garage. That's all. I'm not gonna say anything else.
No, nothing else.
Friends, opponents, I'm Jetterex. While I'm not a dentist anymore, when I walk into the office to get my teeth cleaned, they still yell, "Tim!"
Is it like the cheers? Like everyone just knows who you are when you walk in?
They do.
That's amazing.
I go to a very polite dentist office. They're very friendly.
That's weird. That's how it is at my dentist office too.
I don't trust it.
No, those monsters. They just like to poke me with things. Anyway, thank you for joining us today on the Head Games Commander podcast, where we talk about the Magic the Gathering Commander format. So, Tim, after two 10-hour car rides, a deck build together, and all this pre dental stuff nonsense, what are we talking about today?
Today, we're not talking about braces. We're talking about brackets. So they were introduced by Wizards of the Coast in an announcement a couple of weeks before MagicCon Chicago, and now we've had some time to chew on them. We're ready to tell you what we think. What's good? What's bad? What needs an extraction as soon as possible? That's my last dentist joke, I promise.
For now.
Instead of rushing into the conversation when it was first announced, we decided that we were going to take the brackets out for a spin at MagicCon Chicago, see what our peers were saying before we lend our own voices to the conversation. So to get started today, we thought we'd, recap our MagicCon Chicago experience as it does kind of frame how we have developed our ideas about this topic. So Zombie, how was MagicCon Chicago? What did you think?
MagicCon Chicago was, honestly, this was the best MagicCon Chicago it's the best MagicCon that I've been to. And there's lots of reasons why. One, I'm in a lot better of a mental headspace than I was in the last few years. So I was able to enjoy the experience way better. I've done a lot of self-work on like not trying to plan everything out. So it did well. Like I wasn't stressed out about a lot of things that normally stresses me out over that weekend. But I got to meet a lot of content creators. The door deck is all filled up. There's only some lands left. There's only a couple of cards left. So the signings are closed for that list, man, which is a great problem to have.
That's really saying something in a 100-card format.
I know, right? I got to meet some amazing people. I got to make friends. Heck, we got recognized day one. Can't really beat that, dude.
It was a pretty remarkable feeling and totally unexpected. So
and last but not least, I got to play with Joe Johnson from Table Talk Jocks in a game of Arch Enemies, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think that's I only got to like fly on the wall that a little bit while you were doing it, but I think that's a remarkable choice. And I know I said it at the time, but I think that is as someone who is a personality to, because if you're playing in a pod, you're the personality and there's three other people there. It changes the dynamics. So to just to rewrite the dynamics by playing Arch Enemy seems like a very cool choice. I like a lot of things about that.
Yeah, it just says, hey, you're going to attack me anyway, so now you don't have the choice of attacking anyone else, which is also pretty sweet.
Right.
And he's also known for playing super powerful stuff, so you kind of almost need to do that anyway, so you might as well get extra benefits from it too, right?
Sure. Yeah. It's a cool format. I wish I had more experience with it.
Yeah. So Tim, how was your or weekend at Chicago?
I agree with you, and really, we talked about it in our last episode that we kind of walked into this with a different mindset. We, made plans in a slightly different way to try to maximize the joy that we got out of the experience, and try to minimize like the things that can make something like this a little taxing, a little challenging. And I feel like we were successful in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So much so, in fact, that I agree. Out of the three years we've been doing this was definitely my favorite. And I actually like last year was a good time, but in retrospect, like after I got home from it, I realized just how kind of stressful the experience
Mhm.
was. So I was a little annoyed that they did it in Chicago again. Because
Yeah.
I was really hoping that they would just do it in a different city or perhaps bring it back to Philly, which is
Oh, that would
closer
have been
to us.
nice.
Go Birds.
Go
Um,
Birds.
and and actually that it was in Chicago again really made it very comfortable because we just were there last year, and it took a lot of that discomfort of kind of learning the landscape out, which I think made the experience
Yeah.
really great.
Yeah.
So I played a total of 13 games of Commander over 3 days, and I wrote down like who I played against and what decks they were playing and who won and how, which I thought was a really. I saw somebody do it last year, so I picked it. I picked
Mhm.
up that habit. I wasn't as detailed as that person was because that person took like fantastic notes
Oh,
that were
his
more
notes
than a
were
little
great.
funny.
Yeah.
They were great. And I just wanted to mark the moments as a way of kind of like tuning into what was happening. And I actually really appreciate that helped me stay in the moment. I made the decision very last minute to buy a pre-con and take it with me. And I played
Mhm.
that more than I played any other deck.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Um, we made some amazing breakfast friends because we were
You
staying in the same hotel as a lot
did.
of other people, and we got to know them over the course of a couple of days. Picked up some new subscriptions, but people who were really,
Yeah.
really friendly, and we got to know. That was a lot of fun. So yeah, good food, good times, and really
Oh, the good
people were really
food. Oh, the
people were really open to hearing about head games too, which like
Yeah.
we're amateurs, we're doing this for fun and for joy at this point, so to have people be responsive and kind of be supportive is just that's very encouraging to
It's
me.
one of the
So
coolest things
that
to see.
it really was that was very rewarding.
So I was gonna actually ask you what deck did you end up playing the most, but looks like we already got that answer because you played it. I
Yeah,
think what 4 times over the course of 13 games.
I think so. I'd have to go back. I don't actually have the book on hand right now, but I have to go back and look. But it definitely was the one I played the most. Um, and I took a lot of decks with me, and I played all of them at least once. But
Yeah, same here.
there were definitely ones that I reached for more often than others. I think that's always the case. You kind of have ones that you're just in the
Yeah.
mood for at the moment.
Oh yeah.
But per our conversation today, when we're having conversations about power level or theme or
Hmm.
however we want to figure out our kind of matchmaking, that conversation leads to what deck am I thinking about playing, which is why the conversation about brackets I think is so relevant right now, because when you go to a big event like a MagicCon, you want to be able to have a framework
Hmm.
for effective matchmaking, because if I had been playing my super powerful decks against three precons, I'm
Yeah.
probably I'm way over advantaged at that point, and really maybe that ends up with a very unfun experience for really for everybody. I'm not having fun if I'm just dunking on
Because
people.
you know
Some
what ends
people
up
do it.
you know what ends up happening. You end up attacking me the whole time, and I die first. Oh, that happens so many times.
That sounds right. That's just good threat
Which,
assessment,
but
though.
that's okay. Like that's okay. Like I was never once salty about dying first. Maybe there was a couple,
Maybe the
but
maybe the one where we played for another 3 hours
but
afterwards.
it was still a fun game. But I also was able to then just go out, get some signatures, and that's really how I was able to like get so many signatures is because you were tied down for a game and I didn't feel guilty making you follow me to the content creator corner just to get everyone to sign it and to meet new people. So
So true.
it worked out so well. So
So true. All right, let's dive into the conversation about
Yes.
brackets. We'll start out. Steve, you got to give us a little framework for what are the brackets, what do they mean, brief description on each of them, so we can kind of start the conversation.
So I am reading this directly off of the article that he posted. I'm actually just reading the quick recap to kind of explain in his words what the idea of the brackets were. So bracket 1 is exhibition. And that's incredibly casual with the focus of decks built on theme like the Weatherlight Crew or, uh Princess Buttercup's tour guide to the multiverse. Anyway, it's opposed to it's focused on theme more than winning. So in bracket ones, you're going to get no game changers, no 2-card combos, no mass land denial or extra turn cards, and tutors should be sparse. Bracket 2 is core. The power level of the average modern day pre-constructed decks sits here. No game changers, 2-card combos, or mass land denial. You shouldn't expect to be chaining extra turn spells together, and tutors again should be sparse. Bracket 3 is upgraded. Decks are stronger than modern day pre-constructed decks, but not fully optimized, and include a small number of game changers. Up to 3 game changers can be included. No mass land denial, nor early 2-turn card combos, and you should expect to be not chaining extra turns together again. Bracket 4 is optimized, which is you go nuts. You use whatever cards you want. There's no restrictions other than the ban list. And then bracket 5 is CEDH. This bracket is powerful with the eye toward a metagame and a tournament structure. No restrictions other than the ban list. And then the list of game changers includes 40 cards with a huge impact both in Commander and the kind of games you're playing. It's like a half step to be able to notch cards up but not ban them, and further unbans will likely go on the list to ease them in. This also includes players about cards that are at the upper end of Commander power, and any future bans would likely come off this list. So that's the gist of the bracket systems. So yeah, I think it's a good start. So what are your thoughts on that so far, Tim?
So what's interesting to me about it, like right off the rip, is the choices that they made as like this is going to be a part of this conversation, and these things are not going to be a part of this conversation. And we'll go into greater depth about like what seems good and what does not further on. But the first announcement has so much like information you could possibly unpack and you could possibly like think about. They definitely hint there that there's possible unbannings coming down the line. I don't think that we would see any bannings in the near future. What with all of the hubbub that happened at the end of last year, or actually I don't even recall when the bannings occurred. Now that I'm thinking about it, but yeah, there really doesn't seem to me like that's going to happen here soon. But he definitely opened the door for the possibility of unbannings onto the game changer list. There's a lot to unpack here, but we started our time in Chicago by using the brackets kind of for the first time, and they're very much in a beta here, and they made that very clear in the announcement that this is the first form of this idea, and definitely subject to change, definitely subject to upgrade. And as they get feedback and as they figure out what really makes sense and what doesn't. So we talked to a lot of people about it while we were there. I think the general consensus was positive. Everybody seemed to think that it was a good start, as you said, a great jumping off point. I was actually a little surprised how few people knew about it. And I think that just reminds me that like we're interacting with this game in a way that a lot of people don't.
Right.
And if you go to a MagicCon, you are actually likely to see a lot of very casual players there who really have no idea what we're talking about as far as like brackets and other conversations of this type. So, but I think that them making this announcement inspired a lot more, inspired that conversation to occur.
Mm-hmm.
In really, I had the conversation in every game I played.
Yep.
And so like if that's the goal, we're doing pretty well so far.
Yeah. I agree. Most of the responses that I got were overall positive. There is a couple of negative things that I've been hearing about that people are worried about people making a deck that they're going to say is a 1 or a 2 and they're going to pub stomp people. Sadly, nothing will ever fix that.
Right.
There's always going to be bad liars who are just trying to beat the system in any way possible. Sadly, this will help them with that, but realistically speaking, we're not running into them very often. And worst case, when they do lie to you and say these things or whatever, you just don't play with them again. So,
right.
So, like, if they're not trustworthy enough to follow the bracket system by what they want to do, you don't have to play with them. That's the cool thing about Magic the Gathering. There's a lot of players out there. You can always find a way to play.
It's an interesting argument, because it's like, it's kind of like saying, if you make rules, people will use the rules to screw you over.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it's like, this is a game based on rules.
It's a pessimistic way of life, but
it really is and I think that generally speaking, and I actually would even say like largely speaking, the majority of the people that I play against are playing in good faith. So yeah,
right.
Are you going to have bad actors? Or are you going to have people who kind of do crappy things? Yeah. I mean, people, it's kind of the same problem we had with the arbitrary power level system. Yeah. Like, you know, everything's a 7.
Yep.
Even when it's a 10.
Yep.
And really, like, I didn't necessarily see that a whole heck of a lot. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you what, the people who like would stomp us when we play on spell table are people who avoid the power level conversation.
Yeah, they'll just say, okay, let's get the game started.
Yeah, like that. Like if you're having the power level conversation, or somebody's being really cagey about the power level of their deck, like you might infer at that point that that person's like coming to play. So if you know, and I think obviously when we play on spell table, it's a very different dynamic because there's a little bit of anonymity to it. It's got that internet facelessness that sometimes happens, but face to face, people just very rarely act that way. So it's an interesting argument.
Yeah, I think overall, I think it's gonna be positive. You're not gonna run into too many players that are doing that. And as I said, if you do, don't play with them again.
That's right.
They'll learn their lesson.
Let's talk about what we think is good about this system. Like, what are the positive aspects? What does it do well? What do you think?
I think it's a great starting off point for the Rule Zero conversation. This isn't replacing it. This is just the starting point. And the definitions of each brackets, it's a great start. There's definitely room for improvement, but I think it's an amazing start of what we can see in the future for this whole topic in general, because as Gavin says, this is a beta, so we just want to hear what people are thinking, and there's always room for improvement. I don't think this bracket system will ever be 100% perfect, but it's a great starting off point. One thing that it does really well, it does identify standalone cards that are very powerful. And also themes that you're going to see in those super powerful decks. We're talking looping turns. We're talking about mass land denial. Like it does a good job identifying single cards that do it. So
Yeah, I think that's a great point, that it also identifies play patterns
yeah.
that are powerful.
Yep.
So two card combos, chaining extra spells, extra turn spells together, mass land denial. Like, we identify these things as inherently powerful, so much so that as we get into the next conversation about game changers and what that means, you don't necessarily see those cards on there or like most of the cards that we're probably referring to on there, because they're already referenced in this other
Yep.
section. So there's a little bit of a mix match there in terms of consistency,
But we'll talk
but
about that
yeah,
later, Tim.
yeah,
So
yeah, I agree that it starts the conversation, and like we're talking about it, all the other podcasts and talking heads are talking about it, which I think is really great, because it does encourage people to have the Rule Zero conversation. And like, I don't know why this word's sticking in my head right now, but I think it was in the article that I was just going through in preparation here today. The word matchmaking came up, right?
mhm.
The idea of like, making sure that the table that you're sitting at is playing the game that you want to play, recognizing that because of how diverse and how variant this game is,
Mhm.
that you can definitely have a very different gameplay experience at a different table depending on the decks that people are playing.
Right.
And that the fact, like, we're all agreeing to that premise walking up to the table. And that means we should have a conversation about what kind of game are each of us trying to play? Do we think we're lined up enough to play the same game? So it's remarkable that the game's so complex that we need to have that conversation. But I say remarkable in a very, like, I think that's awesome. I think
Yes,
that's
yes,
just
I
a
agree.
very cool thing, that the game is so complex that it requires that. Um, I think the game changer list, as you said, kind of helps define what a strong card looks like. Or what a card that really is so strong that it really shifts shifts the tide in the game
Yep.
altogether. Like, and I think that, and obviously we'll talk about that list a little bit more in more detail, and what maybe doesn't make sense to be on there. Maybe there's some things that should be, but it does a pretty good job of defining what the traits of a strong
Right.
card really looks like. I think that it's an interesting choice. I'm gonna choose to see it as a positive at the start,
Mhm.
that they are trying to blend the conversation about
Mhm.
power level with the conversation about the goal of the gameplay, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think it's admirable that they're making that attempt. I think it's a little clunky in that area, but I do think that it's a good choice overall, that they are trying to do those two things at the same time.
Right. I agree with that. So so now that we've talked about the positives, we want to talk about what are some of the challenges, or what does it do poorly? Um, what does the bracket system do poorly?
So my immediate criticism, and this is not unique, we've heard other
Mhm.
voices say these things. Um, I am I enjoy Magic because it is a game based on a whole lot of rules.
Mhm.
So when we have poorly defined rules, it's vexing to me. So when I see, and you can look at the list, you can check the link out for the summary of the brackets, and it says few tutors. What is a few?
What kind of
What counts
tutors?
what counts as a tutor? And really, like, even in the conversations we've had on our own, like, we recognize that digging a land out of your deck counts as a tutor, but does it? Like,
Does it?
is a rampant growth a demonic tutor? Like, weirdly, I know you've had this experience. Sometimes you use a demonic tutor to get a land.
I've done it. I'm
Of
guilty of
course
it.
you have. Because lands are such an important part of the deck. So I'm getting off track here, but like the fact that it says few, is like it's just too nebulous. If you're gonna make a rule that says if you fit into this category, this is what this should look like, I feel like it needs to be more measurable than that. So chaining extra turn spells, I have a problem with that as well. And I agree with the principle. I don't want people to chain extra turn spells. I deliberately didn't put extra turn spells in my Hidetsugu and Kairi deck because I don't like playing against them.
Yeah.
For that reason, because the deck is circular already. So if I'm just taking extra turns, it can be very, very fussy for everybody else who's at the game. Late game 2-card infinite combos.
When's late game?
Like, what is the late game? So I'm making my point here, but it's, it is kind of the same thing over and over when you use language that is deliberately vague, and they are doing that on purpose. They're trying to make the hoop that you jump through pretty wide. But for me, I don't want it to be. I want to know where the line is so I can get right up, so that I can figure out whether I'm on what side of it I'm on.
Right.
I think that another thing that I find bothersome is that, again, if you just look at the graphic that has the 5 different brackets and you look at 4 and 5, there aren't any differences.
They're identical.
And so there aren't any measurable differences. The only difference between 4 and 5 is a philosophical difference. And I fundamentally have a problem with that. And that kind of leads me to the idea that, does 5 even need to be on there? Except I think that it does.
I was about to say it definitely needs to be on there.
I think that CEDH does need to be on the list. Like when we had the old 1 through 10 scale, we used to consider 9s and 10s CEDH.
Yep.
Like a 9 was like regular
a tier 2 or tier 3 CEDH deck, right. And 10 was a tier 1. Or tier 2
was a top tier one. So like, and we've definitely made the joke a couple of times now that when you are taking the old 1 through 10 system and applying the bracket system, all you have to do is divide your old number and cut it in half, or divide your old number by 2 and round down, and you got your new number. Yep. So every seven's a 3.
Yep.
And you're gonna find that's going to happen. I promise. But to that end, 9s and 10s are 5s now. But I don't like that there isn't a mathematical difference between 4 and 5. And I think that my biggest gripe is between 2 and 3.
Oh yeah.
Is that I think that there's a much bigger gap between 2 and 3. Like 2, 3, and 4 is the core of the game. Yep. This is where almost everybody's playing. And so, but I think that there's a huge gap between 2 and 3. Yeah.
So I agree with the measurable differences, but there is because you cannot accidentally make a 5. Right? So there is a metagame in mind. You're not gonna be able to use every single commander and make a 5. Like that's not how competitive Magic works, right? Yes, there's people that do it, but it's like a hive mind kind of solution versus like, oh, I made this deck, it's a 5. And like, here's the funny thing, like a 5 could run into a 4 and then have problems against a 4 on the principle of you're going to be doing things that they might not expect and fight on a different axis that they're not ready to fight on. So like these things are all possible because I've run into CEDH decks with my Wingrace deck and done incredibly well because like I'm just doing something that they're not ready to fight against.
They're not used to interacting.
Right. Like if you have something that like isn't necessarily as low to the ground or whatever, and you have multiple problems, like sometimes CEDH can't handle with that. Or like, because like most CEDH decks aren't going to have a lot of board wipes. But if you're playing like a super aggressive aggro deck that has the capability of making crazy amounts of tokens, they're going to struggle a little bit because they don't swing axes. They use scalpels, right? Where a 4 is going to use the biggest great hammer that you can get in Elden Ring and just start bonking people as hard as they can. Like it's a totally different philosophy that it definitely needs to have its own separate space on the list, but it needs to be measurable.
To your point, you can't accidentally make a 5. You can't accidentally make a 4.
It's true, but it's easier to make, like, it's easier to accidentally make a 4 than it is to make a 5. Or to
I don't think you can accidentally make either. Like, and really the difference ends up being, so if you were truly trying to streamline your deck to such an extent that it did exactly what you wanted it to do every single time, you would end up in a territory that looks a whole lot like CEDH. The difference is, philosophically, that you are including your knowledge of the metagame into your deck building.
Yeah.
And so like that right there is the actual difference. And really, if you don't understand that sentence I just said, you're not playing CEDH.
Right.
And again, I don't play CEDH. I play other competitive formats, not really competitively.
Right.
But I understand the premise that you have to know what you're playing against in order to be effective against it. And really, because the commander format is so big, understanding the CEDH meta is a momentous task, like just so huge to be able to do that. So yeah, I don't know how to make it measurable, just to be clear.
Oh, I'm not fixing this problems. I'm just saying what I'm seeing.
And I don't have an answer for how to make it measurable, other than to maybe have a conversation about number of game changers and maybe some other things as well. But it's very hard to answer that question. It is still kind of a gripe that I have, because I kind of have the gripe on the opposite end as well. Like, I'm not a big fan of bracket 1.
Right.
Like, I don't really feel that needs to be on the list, because it's entirely philosophical. And really, to say that you have this kind of meme deck, and that in order for it to be this exhibitionist list, you also have to be really low power. Like, what if you made a meme list? Do you remember a couple of years ago we played against the guy who made the 4-for-4 deck?
Oh my god, yeah.
Right.
I love how both you and I knew exactly what we were talking about before you even finished the sentence, because that's a meme list, but it was so good. Every card had a 4 mana value, like every single
card in the list.
Yeah,
and it was very powerful.
It worked.
And again, like, it meant that he wasn't doing anything but trying to hit his land drops on the first couple of turns. But once stuff started rolling, so that's why the first one kind of bugs me a little bit, because I feel like it's taking up a spot that could be used otherwise. And I actually do have a suggestion. I think we'll come back to this later about how they might consider doing that different.
Yeah, I mean, well, just you said it yourself. You could just have one be like I still think the precon. I think it has a decent spot, right? Like, it deserves to be there, because I mean, if you're playing a chair deck, it's a complicated.
I think the frequency of that is so low that it doesn't need to be in there.
So, funny story. So the EDH Recast had an episode where they pulled all the information from all the deck building websites that they use to get their information. And there were more bracket 1s that were titled bracket 1s by the player than CDH decks that were titled by CDH players. So there were more tier 1 meme lists than CDH lists. So apparently the market's out there. We just never run into them.
I disagree. I just I could poke a lot of holes in that data
Oh,
insofar as like
it's not
if you're not
perfect.
telling me how many there are in 2, 3, and 4, that list doesn't matter at all.
They
To
had
say
it,
that
but like,
just to say that there's more ones than fives. Also, like you're using a very like specific data set,
of
so
course.
you're really only and those are lists that people put online.
No, it's true.
Right. So who does everybody put all their lists on Moxfield? Or,
No.
or on Architect or on any of these other formats? Like I think the vast majority of people don't ever do that. So my point was though that I think that you can have a meme list that is really powerful. And so having the meme list that fits into just bracket one, like I really I don't feel like I've never seen that.
Yeah, I mean,
and
my
and
my
may,
my my two meme lists. One's a 4, like hands down. Like I built it to be a 4, and it wins with door to nothingness. That's a 4. It's gonna take control of the game and then take a 20-minute turn and win at the end of it. Because it is focused on. Well, I mean, it is focused on winning, but just with a specific card, which I still considered a themed deck. And then my tour guide of the multiverse deck. I mean, it turns out Universe Beyond cards are just good.
right.
So like again, it's a meme list, but it's gonna have that stupid Toshgril slug or whatever it is that gives everything -1/-1 because it turns out Gary is the worst kind of creature of all time. So but
And I think, and I want to come back to this part of the conversation because we do have a question later for what improvements we think they could make. But I'd like to get you. You had some bullet points on things that
right.
you think that the system does not do well. So
So
let's go over those.
the things that and since we've discussed a lot of it, really the one important part is it doesn't do a very good job of identifying synergy between cards. So
Right.
I can build a 4 with no game changers. It's gonna be a 4 because the cards that I picked worked so well together, and there's
Right.
no algorithm out there that's gonna be able to ever identify why these two cards work well together. There's just too much information that I don't
Yep.
think a database will ever be able to do something like that. And who knows? I might be wrong. AI might take over the world, and we need John Connor to save our Moxfield because of they figured out a way to do this. But until then, I just don't think
And
it's
then
good.
they're matching ones against fives, and there's chaos, and everybody's having a bad time. And then they build a robot that beats us all in every pod we play in.
Yeah. It's just a thing that we can't do. So please stop sending all the robots to do all the important things. But yeah, so that's
an impossible task. Like you said, it's so impossible to, like, when I think of some of my lists, and again, like I really do, when I ran all of my things through this filter, I was mid 2 in a lot of my lists because I had organically started winding down game changers before they were called game changers, and that's not a brag. That's just where I was at in the kind of game that I wanted to play. Like I wanted to hang with the people at the table, be able to do my thing, interact with what they're doing, and then I want to see everybody else's deck do what they're doing. I want to see mine do what I want it to do. So I like organically pared down on a lot of these ideas. I don't play with extra turn spells, not as a rule, but as a kind of philosophy. I don't really play extra turn spells. I've never played mass land denial.
Right.
I've cut back on tutors in a really meaningful way. So when I looked at all of my lists, I don't have a single 4, not one, because like by the measuring stick that they have now given us, I don't have a single 4.
You're telling me Jolene's not a 4?
Yeah, like my Jolene list wins a lot.
Oh, that deck is so good.
it wins a lot. I won I think second place at a local commander tournament with like 20 players here a year or two ago, and I really smashed both games I played with that list because of synergy, because what you're talking about. Because treasures are inherently powerful and the deck is entirely built around them. So really like it's so hard to quantify that, and that's why they haven't even tried. They were like, we can't do that, so we might as well just let that one go.
Alrighty, so we've talked a lot about the bracket system, but we haven't really talked about the game changer list. We're not going to go over every individual card. The game changer list will be right here. Oops, sorry, right here. Also, we'll have links in the description. But we want to talk about what we should remove, maybe a card that we would like to add to the game changer list, and maybe something that should come off the ban list.
Yeah, let's put a new card on there, but the one that isn't currently in the format.
Yeah. So, Tim, what card would you remove from?
I think there's a lot on the list. Not a lot. There's probably about a half dozen cards that I think could very safely not be on the list. But I chose the one that I guess I'm just confused by. Like, I don't really get, based on their description of what a game changer should be and how inherently powerful all the other cards seem, why this one's on there, and it's Grand Arbiter Augustin the Fourth. So this is a four. This is a 4-mana Azorius 2/3 human advisor. None of that matters. White spells you cast cost 1 generic less. Blue spells you cast cost 1 generic less. Spells your opponents cast cost 1 generic more. So to me, this is a stacks piece, sure, but like, it's a 2/3 creature. It dies to cut down, for crying out loud. Is it really that powerful? So, I mean, it's a stacked piece that makes your stuff cheaper and makes everybody else's stuff more. It's only one more. I don't get it.
So, okay,
like,
I think
what am I not seeing?
I think this is what I don't think you're not seeing anything. I agree. I don't know if it necessarily needs to be on the list. However, this card does create a feel bad like feeling when you're sitting across from it, because you get like, you as the person that has it, your spells are costing 1 or 2 less and their spells are actively costing 1 more. So that disparity that it has is really big. And honestly, it's just a pain in the ass card to play against. But also, when's the last time you've seen it?
Yeah, like, and really, I hear all of that, and I go, it's a 2/3 creature with no abilities and no protection. Yeah. Like, I mean, I don't want to make the dies to Doomblade argument here, but this dies to everything.
It dies to everything. This dies
to Lightning Bolt. This dies to cut down. This
cards that we don't even play in this format, it dies to.
Yeah, it dies to just
Lightning Strike, Tim. Lightning Strike.
All of the creatures on the list, like, you could say that about. Some of them are harder than others to remove, but my understanding of the philosophy of the game changer is that it just changes the pattern of play so dynamically that it like really feels different, and I just think that this one is not quite there.
No, I get it.
I get it. The stacks piece. I get it's not fun to play against. I don't like playing against stacks. I frickin' hate Authority of the Consoles. And
we're not talking about that.
That's not a super powerful card. It just is annoying to play against, and that's what I see here. I see this as like a mid-level power card that is really annoying to play against, and I just don't think that's good enough. I think, and to that point, I think there's a lot of other cards that meet that qualifier that you could put up right next to this card and go, well, this is a mid-level power card that is annoying to play against Authority of the Consoles.
Like any Thalia or something, just like any stacks piece, really, but like, or Stasis or really, something. Like
it brings up the point that really stacks pieces are not something that's part of this conversation at all, except for the land denial.
It's true.
So does this count as that? Is that what this is? That it makes all of your opponent's spells cost more?
You might be saying a lot, and you're also leaning out of frame, Tim. Thank you. Anyway, so I 100% agree with it. It doesn't need to be on this list. Like, it's kind of like weaned itself out of the format anyway. You're not seeing that card ever. But the card that I picked to remove is, and this is going to be a hot take. It's going to be Vorinclex, Voice of Hunger. It is an 8 mana 7/6 trampler. Whenever you tap a land for mana, add 1 mana to your mana pool of that land produced. And then whenever an opponent taps a land for mana, that land doesn't untap it on its controller's next end steps. So the reason why I believe this doesn't need to be on the game changer list is because they already have mass land denial in the prefix of what determines power level. And you don't see that until what? Turn 4? So just having 1 mass land denial, which what Vorinclex is, makes you a 4 automatically. It doesn't need to be on the game changers list for that reason, because I'm pretty sure it's them not untapping lands is the reason why it's on here.
So yeah, if it qualifies, if either of these cards, which really Vorinclex is a much better example of what we're talking about, that this is, that it very, very clearly feels like mass land denial. And if it is that, the earliest you can play it is at a bracket 4, and at that point you can play as many game changers as you want. So why is it taking up the spot? Right.
And I am going to briefly go into a few other cards. I don't think any of the tutors need to be on the list. If they made like you can have this many non-land tutors in your thing. Like the second you start doing that, they don't need to be game changers anymore.
If they defined that a little bit better, if they said like, we're going to say like making the non-land qualifier, like we're not going to count anything that searches for a land as a tutor. Okay. But again, even adding that qualifier makes it a little tough, because that means searching for a specific land, and we know how potent that can be. With the utility lands that exist in the format now, getting 1 land gets you Glacial Chasm, so which is on the game changer list. But point being that like searching for that 1 land can actually be really impactful. So I think that's why the few tutors thing is so nebulous, is because they probably had a really hard time kind of making it more granular, like making it more specific.
So
we're having a hard time.
So all right, let's quantify it a little bit more. Any tutor that doesn't search for a non-basic land, there you go. You can then count Tempt with Discovery as a tutor that would count towards your 1, 2, or 3 tutors or whatever.
Okay.
Like, and I think every deck should be allowed to have at least 1 or 2 tutors, right? Like a 1 still is going to want to search for the card that's the spiciest, that has the most theme or whatever. Like my Universes Beyond deck is going to want to find just whatever legendary creature that fits the mold at the moment. Like, yeah, Sissy's repeatable, but like it's the same concept. Like, as long as you like say a number for tutors that is non-basic land or basic lands only, you can have as many Rampant Growths and Kamadamas Reach as you want, because eventually you'll run out. So like basic lands, yes, they're important, but they're not also going to completely change the face of the format. And I say that now as I die to landfall decks constantly. So
that's always the way.
So we have talked about cards that we want to remove. Tim, what card would you like to add, and why is it Authority of the Consoles?
So it's not Authority of the Consoles, because every time I talk about how bad I think, or how awful that card is, it comes up to haunt me. So I don't think it's powerful enough to be a game changer. I just hate it. So in a stroke of irony, the card I'm going to suggest, and again, this is absolute hypothetical. I actually don't think that this quite makes the cut, but I was trying to think of something that changes the dynamics of the game, that changes the way that things works in a significant way. And now that I've made arguments against Grand Arbiter Augustin, I think that those same arguments work against the card I'm going to suggest, which is Sheoldred the Apocalypse. So this is 2 and 2 black for a 4/5 death touch. Whenever you draw a card, you gain 2 life. Whenever an opponent draws a card, they lose 2 life. So it creates that asymmetrical, I'm benefiting from the thing that everybody wants to do, everybody else is suffering from the thing that everybody wants to do. Now listen, Sheoldred does not die to cut down. Nope. It does not die to lightning bolt.
Doesn't die to terror.
Doesn't die to terror.
Doesn't die to terror.
But none of that matters. It dies to removal. But when I tried to think of cards that I have and that I play, and when I play them, everybody goes, "Okay, well now we have to kill you."
Yeah. Honestly, this is a really good pick. Like, again, like when Sheoldred touches the table, the game changes.
The game changes
to you're the problem. Like, that's what it does, because how do you win games, Tim? You draw cards.
Yeah. And really, like, to get the answer to deal with it, you want to draw more cards, and it hurts you along the way. And really, like, it is actually a card. I always make this argument, but like, in a vacuum, will this card kill your opponent? Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, it will. By itself. It will take a very long time. But if nobody does anything about this card, it will actually kill everyone else at the table.
It will kill Garth in a heartbeat. Let me tell you. I draw so many cards.
I got to start flashing in Sheoldred.
Yes, you do. I'm going to draw all the cards in my library except this one. And you're dead.
and
you're dead. You're right. I am dead. And then I'll have to find something to fix that problem.
That actually really makes me think about Orcish Bowmasters too. Like, you could make a very similar,
such a good card.
Like, you can make a very similar argument there. Like, that card, and that card does flash. Like, I'm gonna make sure I play with that more often so I can kill your guard.
Wait. You're telling me it's not on the game changer list? Am I like? It should be.
I don't. Orcish Bowmasters.
Melissa's Citadel, Demonic Tutor, Imperial Seal, Opposition Angel, Tergrid, Vampiric Tutor, Ad Nauseam. Why is Orcish Bowmaster not on this list?
Not powerful enough. Doesn't change the game.
I am changing my answer to that. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to go ahead and the card that I'm putting on the list is a very good card. And green didn't get enough punishment, and I already tried to took a green card off, so I'm gonna replace it with another green card, and it's Sylvan Library. Man, every time. Okay, let's read the card first, because most people know what it does, but for you those who have been wondering when we're gonna start talking about dentistry, not yet, but we are gonna talk about Sylvan Library. It is a 2-mana enchantment. And it says at the beginning of your draw step, you may draw 2 additional cards. If you do, choose 2 cards in your hand drawn this turn. For each of those cards, pay 4 life and put that card on top of the library. Man, paying 8 life to draw 2 extra cards on your upkeep is insane. Even if you're not paying the 4 life to keep the extra cards, like, even if you drew cards before this would have happened, like if you draw cards on your upkeep, you get to look at extra cards and you get to keep an extra card for free anyway. So this card just does so much. And as I said, the way to win games is by drawing cards and spending mana. This is drawing cards in such an efficient way. Yes, 4 life is a lot, but is it a lot when it's only a 10th of your life, not, a 20th of your life?
And it's really whatever. Like, it just, the opportunity cost, like what you are paying for it at 2 mana as an enchantment, is so low. And yeah, you're paying life for the cards, like you said, but in a high life value format, that especially the first time you do it, you don't even really blink at it. Like I'm definitely drawing 3 cards the first time.
My Bilbo
Because
deck just says, "Oh no, I don't even need to look at the cards."
that's right. Any kind of life gain deck is, which green is very good at. This is very powerful there. I mean, I agree that it is a very powerful green card, and its price tag usually reflects that as well.
Yep.
I remember when this card was like really financially
It
expensive.
used to be like in the 50s. They
Yeah,
printed it into the ground, and it's still $25.
right, and that should tell you something. It really should. I think that you
Yeah.
could definitely just look at the cost of cards and see in you to for at least some of your picks for the list. So yeah, I think it's a pretty solid choice. I think that I mean, when you have a finite number of things that go on the list, and I like, you took that a green card off and you replaced it with a green card. So I think, subbing in Sylvan Library for Boring Collects, he makes a lot of sense to me. I had similar thoughts about the fish. Oh my god.
Mystic Remora.
Yeah, about Mystic Remora, where it's like, but it's so like circumstantial, where
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's really, really good, and other times it feels
It
like it's
just does
not.
nothing. It depends on like what you're playing
Yeah,
against. That's why
yeah,
I could see fish not being on the list versus like Ristic Study
right.
and how it is on the list, because that does it just to every card. But like,
Just everything. That's right.
and
And
it's
so
3 mana
but
once, and then like where the fish, it's 1 mana the first turn, then it's 2 mana, then it's 4 mana, then it's 6 mana or whatever the number ends up being. I don't feel like thinking math that much, but so so but still, I've seen that card played, and people are like, "I'm just gonna let you draw 20 cards." Like, come on now.
and that's the tricky part about it. So I understand why it was so hard to come up with the list,
Mm-hmm.
because there's so many things where you're like, I've seen this specific card do incredibly powerful things, but there are definitely times where it feels very bad. I've seen Sylvan Library feel really bad,
Mm-hmm.
but I have seen plenty of times where it's been remarkably good.
Mm-hmm.
So hard to say.
Yeah, yeah. Good thing I'm not in charge of this. Please, Wizards of the
Yeah.
Coast, don't hire me for this, because I wouldn't be the greatest help in the world. But please, you can still hire me anyway. I'll help create cards. You can do this part. Anyway, so we talked about a card we would add, we talked about a card we would remove, and now we're getting to the spicy stuff. What ban card should go on the game changer list and not be banned anymore?
So I think that my choice is I think it's fairly safe, actually. I don't think it's actually that controversial. So my pick to come off of the ban list onto the game changer list is Jeweled Lotus. So for those unfamiliar, it's a 0 mana artifact. You can tap it and sacrifice it, add 3 mana of any one color. You can spend this mana only to cast your commander. So this was one of the cards that got banned recently and caused a lot of the uproar and shifts in the commander world. And I think of the 3 cards that got banned in that banning, this is the safest one to pull back. Because I really think that its utility is so narrow.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can only use it to cast your commander. And yes, it's an expensive card financially speaking, and if they unban, I actually don't know where the price is sitting today.
Take a look. Keep talking.
It's
I'll look it up.
probably still fairly expensive, because I think that there is an idea that this one might come off at some point. But really, so it's an expensive card financially. There's no reason why they couldn't reprint this into financial utility, like into a place where where it wasn't so expensive. And I think that they should. I think they should unban it, reprint it, make it so it's not expensive anymore, and not so that necessarily everybody could have one, but everybody has a soul ring. And having a card that makes it so that every now and again your commander comes out a turn or 2 early. Like, I just love that. I love games where somebody gets their commander out wicked fast, and it really makes the game spicy. So, but because you can't use it for other things, it's like fast mana that only does one very specific thing.
Right.
So I don't know. I think this is a safe pull.
Yeah. So looking at the prices, I'm surprised it's still sitting at $50 for the normal ones, and then like $100 for like the extended art ones or the fancy other printings. So I'm surprised it's holding the value that it did.
The regs were at 100 before it was banned.
Yeah. Oh,
so
it's half, but it's still expensive.
It's dropped in price by half. So keep an eye on it. I would, not only am I saying that I think that this would be okay, I actually think that it's likely.
Oh, I agree with you on that.
That this one gets unbanned.
Now my card, this one's there was two cards that I really wanted to pick.
Yeah, I know what the other one is too.
Oh, why is it prime time? Of course it's prime time.
Yeah.
But that's not the one we're talking about today. This is a selfish pick because I love this card. I used to watch a lot of like Legacy a long time ago, and one of my favorite decks to watch was Legacy Reanimator. Do you know what they used to reanimate him in Legacy Reanimator?
What was it?
It's Grizzlebrand. Because it turns out a 7 mana for a 7/7 flying lifelink that when you can pay 7 life to draw 7 cards. Pretty solid. Not a lot of
made it all.
Not a lot of words on this card.
Sixes. They missed a flavorful opportunity there by making it 7 instead of 6. But
yeah, they would probably have gotten like the people like raising their pitchforks and torches.
They never cared about that. They have pitchfork defense systems. They're fine.
They do have pitchfork defense systems, but this one's a selfish picks for me. I want to play this card.
So we're clear, that's never going to happen.
No, absolutely not. This card's amazing. But you know what? I could see it happening anyway because it's not as bad as it used to be, right? Cards are just good now.
Cards are good now. I actually the more I think about it, the more I sit with this idea, the more I go, it's fine.
It's fine.
Like it has to actually do damage to get the lifelink. Like it dies to removal, like everything else does. Everybody's playing with Path to Exile and Swords to Plowshares in their deck, so
yeah. I mean, drawing 21 cards before the thing dies is still because we all know that's what's going to happen. It's going to be I reanimate Grizzlebrand. Okay, Swords to Plowshare. Okay, I'm going to draw 21 cards and then gain 7 life back. Like that's what's going to happen every game. But I love drawing cards, Tim.
I mean, I guess that's it.
Grizzlebrand would go in two decks. It would go in my Windgrace deck, and it would definitely go in Garth.
Yeah.
It would be really good.
So it's just 7 mana to draw a bunch of cards. That's what it is.
That's exactly
why I think
it's
too good.
So, man, we had some spicy choices here. So now that we've discussed everything that the way it is now, I kind of want to talk about how we would improve the systems ourselves. So, Tim, how would you make this system even better?
So my first thought is that I think that I said this before, that the gap between 2 and 3 is too great. And maybe I'm phrasing that incorrectly. I actually think that there, when you look at the mid power level, needs to be a little bit more nuance amongst them, because my problem with the way that it's structured now is that 2 is the core, right? And it is saying that that they're comparable to the average modern pre-con. And that's where I struggle, because based on the mathematical details that they're providing with me, I actually have a lot of 2s, and my 2s are not modern pre-cons. My 2s are running over modern pre-cons every time. So that's my first gripe with the system. So here's my first suggestion. I'm okay with bracket 1 including the philosophical idea of having a meme list. I think that it should also include actual precons. So 1 should be, philosophically a meme list or a non-upgraded precon. One of those two things.
Sounds
I think
brilliant.
so. If you make both of those things in the one category, and again, if we're talking philosophy, it doesn't matter. That's fine. You can have that. You can have the first bracket be more than one thing. And so then 2 becomes your low level upgraded precon.
A precon that you took 10 cards out and you put 10 cards in.
Right. Like that's a 2. And really, I also think that if you're looking at 2 and 3, I think like 1 is no game changers. I think 2 should be allowed, maybe 1
or 2. I would say 1 or
2. Right. Like and just so like 1 or 2 game changers and like and we're going to say few tutors. What's the actual number? Is it 2?
Give us an exact number. Give us a number. Give us a number.
2 game changers, 2 tutors, and upgraded precon level theoretically.
Yeah,
and
2 basic land tutors or something. Yeah. That seems pretty
3
solid.
Doesn't have the qualifier on tutors.
Sure.
So that's already there, but I think that if we're doing 1 or 2 game changers down in level 2, you could do 3 or 4 in the upgraded to make it a little bit a little bit more powerful. But so I think shifting everything down a little bit where you push precon down to 1 makes 2 more meaningful, and then it makes the distinction between 2 and 3, because I really do live in 2. But like, to say that I'm playing against decks that are modern precon, like,
no.
Don't match make me with those folks. They're not going to have a good time.
Absolutely
Neither
not.
am I.
Right.
So that's one thing. I did have, I think, one other item I was thinking about. Nope, that was it. So yeah, like adding nuance between 2 and 3. Shifting precon down to 1, and then changing the number of game changers. That would be it.
The only problem with the precon argument is that there is precons with, well, there is one precon with a ban card in it. There's precons with game changers in it.
Yeah, I think there's one precon with a game changer in it. And frankly, I think that, like, okay,
but also one game changer doesn't really make that much of a difference, right?
No,
because we're talking about 1 in 99 cards, right?
Right.
So,
and I think that
they're not going to see it every game.
There are a couple of precons in particular that are, because I played against the 21 Ways to Win precon, and we know that there's So I actually don't consider that a precon.
No, it's absolutely not. Precon is a set precon that you get off the shelf, not a secret layer.
Exactly right. So making that argument, because that deck against 3 actual precons dunked on us pretty hard. Dude, it took a little while. But once it got rolling, none of us had a chance.
Do you know what happened to me? I played a precon game. This is when the first 3 games or whatever that we played separately. They're like, oh yeah, we have a precon deck. So I pulled out my 40k Necron deck, which I was like, okay, this deck's not bad. It's going to be on the higher end of the power level because it wasn't like a standard set or anything like that. I was like, okay, I'm going to do fine. We played against the 21 different ways to win, and we also played against Zinder Split and Akum. Heads and win, tails and lose. Dude, we lost on turn 5. We lost on turn 5 because of Chandra's ignition and the fact that he gets stupid huge. Like, he needed 5 mana and just went into combat and then was like, okay, I'm not going to attack anyone. Everyone said Chandra's ignition. Like, okay, I played 1 ram spell. Thanks.
That's not a coin. That's not a precon.
Not a precon.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a slippery. There's slippery slopes, right? And there's going to be things that outlie these specific rules, and that's just going to happen no matter with whatever system you have. There's always going to be rules that are subjugated by certain things, right? So I like your idea a lot, but the changes that I would be I want to be more defined with the stipulations. Like we said, I want an exact number of a number of tutors. I want to know exactly what kind of tutors we're talking about, because are we talking about tutors that put things in your hand? What about tutors that put things into play? What about tutors that put it on top of my library? Because that card disadvantage makes a whole lot of difference. Well, are we talking about instant speed tutors? Are we talking about sorcery speed tutors? It's such a are we talking about land ramp? Because that's tutors too. It's such a complicated thing that you want to be able to look at this and have a definitive answer. This list is a 3 by these standards.
Right. Well, it feels like, especially with tutors in particular, like we've acknowledged that it's a part of the conversation. Now we need to define that conversation a little bit more clearly. And if we have a shared language and a shared kind of nomenclature, a shared way of talking about that specific part of the conversation, it will make it better for everybody. To say that, like, and again, this may end up being, like, I love that they started with the Game Changers list, but I think there's a very real world where we end up with more than one. Where we end up with more than one list. Then that one of the list might be, here's what we consider to be tutors in the sense of we want to see this number of these in the deck. I think that they're very cautious to do that because they don't necessarily want to over-engineer it. They're trying to make it as simple as possible. But I think mapping out the conversation about tutors is a good thing by and large. So I'm interested to see if that becomes part of the upgrade.
There's a couple things else that I think that I would do to help improve this is I would shake up the game changer list a little bit, right? Yep. So we already talked about tutors. Why does every color have a tutor on their list when we've already talked about it? And if you had the set number of tutors in your list, you don't need to have tutors on your game changers list. That frees up spaces for other powerful cards that you maybe even have game changers that are synergy specific. Like this is a synergy engine piece. Like, because I think the way they did their game changer list is they were talking about cards that just stand alone that are super powerful. However, they don't have Phyrexian Altar on the list, or, you know, but they do have like Thassa's Oracle, but they don't have the Demonic Consultation because Thassa's Oracle by herself, crap card, to be honest. Like, if you're not running it to win the game, the card's bad. It doesn't need to be a game changer. So I understand wanting to have like parts of combos on the list that I would look at the linchpin cards, right? Like Thassa's Oracle deserves to be on here. It in the sense that it's a linchpin that helps win basically any CDH game. Like
and it combos with a lot of things. Like Demonic Consultation is just one of example.
Them, right? So you pick the common denominator. So like
that
Phyrexian Altar is one of the cards that goes.
It's a common denominator.
It goes infinite with, you know, a monkey wrench. So don't put the monkey wrench in. You put the engine block, right?
Yeah.
And I think that would be something that would be really good to also have on here as well.
Yeah.
And figure out a way to talk about synergy, man. Because
it's so tough.
It's really
agree.
Tough.
It's just, I know that that's not part of the conversation because they probably had the same thought and talked about it at their tables and were like, I just don't know how to quantify it. I cannot fathom a way in this incredibly complex
game. Glad I don't have that job.
How to say, you know, how to figure out what synergy, how you measure synergy and how you put a cap on it.
Yeah. And the last thing that I want to talk about that I am shocked is not mentioned at all in the bracket system is a way to talk about fast mana. Like,
right, we talked about this earlier. That's right. Yeah, it's not on there at all.
It's not on here at all.
At all. But
right?
it's like what's remarkable about that is that it was 100% a part of the Rule Zero conversation before brackets became a thing.
And
like
then all of a sudden it's not talked about at all.
Yeah, when we talk about our power level arbor deck, we'd say, "Oh, I'm playing with less tutors. I'm not doing any. I don't have any infinite combos. I'm not playing any fast mana. Like fast mana was on the list of what qualified something as being powerful. So it is remarkable. Now that being said, the most notable fast mana pieces are all on the game changer list.
Right. So
to some extent, they haven't named it. But they have put the most notorious fast mana pieces on there.
So I think, I know it's a lot extra work and having a whole bunch of lists could be a bad idea. However, I think it would be nice to have, these are the tutors we're talking about. These are fast mana. These are the mass land denial. These are what we're talking about. Like, it doesn't have to be like an all-encompassing list. Like, it doesn't need to have Armageddon. It doesn't need to have the same thing that's Armageddon, but it just has a different name. Like, it doesn't need to be every single card, but like having a list of cards that would be Blood Moon is a good example. Stasis is a good example of like mass land denial in a way that's not just destroying the lands, and just having something that mentions something like that would be amazing.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought, that it wouldn't necessarily, it's tough to put something out and say this is informal.
Yeah.
When you are like the company that runs the thing, because then everybody's going to go like, yeah, it's informal, but it's got your stamp on it. So we're all going to kind of treat it formally. Yeah, it's so I agree. I like a lot of your ideas as well. I think that, increasing the specificity that we're talking about some of the things could be very valuable. I do think that I think the game changer list is going to change.
Oh, I think
like
so too.
In that, like the feedback that they've gotten back, I'm sure that they're gonna consider some of that and maybe shift some things around. And I think that what we've come up with is in a lot of ways aligning with what other voices are saying as well. That we got to look at some of these ideas, and we'd like a little bit more specifics on some of these ideas. And if we look at, you made this rule over here, so it's redundant to also have it over here, maybe that frees up some space, and maybe the game changer list gets shorter, which is okay.
Sure. That's totally okay too.
Or maybe some things come off of it, and then we get to add a couple of more things like they're on there, like Authority of the Consoles, and then people will play it less, and I'll have more fun.
Yeah. So, before we end this episode, we do need to bring up one more conversation, and is, why is there a giant tooth in my garage? And a whole bunch of dental equipment that just magically disappeared from this event.
Well, with that, friends and opponents, thank you for spending time with us today on the Head Games Commander podcast. Remember to schedule your next appointment with the receptionist before you leave. You can support this show and all of our other ridiculous and goofy content by watching this and our other videos on our YouTube page, checking out our streams on Twitch and YouTube. You'll find some of those links in the description.
But before we scoop things up, we want to hear from you, the think tank. What cards would you add to the game changer list? Let us know in the comments below. And as always, thank you for playing along with us, and have a wonderful day. Bye.